Before I begin this video, I would like to comment that due to the topics discussed within the original video by Rahetalius, I will only be providing a short overview of the Rahetalius upload, and then continuing with the statements and events that occurred afterwards with the developer response, then the community response to the developers, up to the point of the event's conclusion. I also highly suggest that you actually watch the Corruption of Digital Extremes video beforehand, as the summary cannot collect and compile all of the sources and information that had been discussed in the full 30-minute video. So without further ado, let's begin. On the 23rd of February 2019, Rahetalius, a Warframe partner, released a video titled Warframe, The Corruption of Digital Extremes. He started the 30-minute video by providing a short little snippet of the chat moderator code of conduct, and then continues by providing a history lesson on past and current members of the moderation team's actions that go against the aforementioned code of conduct. He also uses this information to highlight the lack of Digital Extremes action and the lack of enforcement of action prior to the December 2018 chat moderation debacle. Tools posted by One Angry Gamer and Psychocinematic's Corpus Cop video from May of 2018 and onwards are two recorded cases that archive poor conduct by past and current moderators. Also discussed were the connected issues with the Guides of the Lotus program, and the removal of Fosternator from said program by D.E. Danielle, who is in charge of the program. He was removed after he had expressed quote-unquote awful behavior on Twitter. This was one of the points Rahetalius made that highlighted favoritism and double standards when compared to the past and current chat moderators. The silence regarding Ashitogi Tenno's Warframe partnership application turndowns was also highlighted by Rahetalius to support this topic. He pointed out, just like Ashitogi did, that all requirements had been met but no official reason had been given, and that the speculated reasons by other partners in Ashitogi's Warframe partnership note video didn't make sense when compared to Rahetalius' own experiences with the partnership program. Rahetalius also claims that he is not the worst Warframe partner when it comes to behavior, dispelling the notion that he's just some toxic, salty Vauban player by highlighting a clip from one of A Gay Guy Play's live streams, reiterating that there is no reason as to why Ashitogi is not a partner when compared to himself and others within the program. Each of the discussed topics also highlight nepotism, the aforementioned double standard in decision-making, seemingly ignoring and or the lack of action and explanation by Digital Extremes in regards to numerous situations. He also, after all the information that he had provided, continued by listing what the community had and have as Guides of the Lotus and moderators for the game, providing unique titles to them. Telluric was titled a social justice psychopath, Shadow an edgelord, Server an arsehole, friendzoning misandrist and identity-switching Tumblrina, and Tobiah a manchild, and at the root of it all, Digital Extremes. He continues to remind viewers at this point that D.E. Danielle, the employee in charge of the Guides of the Lotus program, essentially started the problem by doing nothing about the troublesome chat moderators, states that, quote, this is being perpetuated by D.E.'s lack of action. He continues by showing a screenshot from a Reddit reply that outlines a user supposedly being permanently banned for clipping into a Guide of the Lotus in the relay when that was possible, and then being mass reported by that Guide of the Lotus's posse, which then resulted in D.E. Danielle banning that person. In the final portion of the video, he offered his message to Digital Extremes that I will play now due to it being very short.
Assuming that DE is watching this video right now, there's 3 things you need to do in order to fix everything and make the player base happy. It's incredibly simple, trust me. Step 1. Remove Server and Missan from their chat moderator positions. As has been shown with Telluric's actions, none of these people are fit or even good choices to be chat moderators. Given that they themselves believe they can decide what is and isn't alright to say, when that's up to DE to decide, not them. You already have a third party assisting you with chat moderation, so removing 2 chat moderators shouldn't matter. There's absolutely no excuse to keep them around after what they've done. Telluric and Shadow have at the very least had the decency to step away from the chat moderator program. Meanwhile, Missan has been changing usernames in hopes that people will just forget about her. And Server has, for the most part, stopped being an asshole. With that in mind, stripping both of them of their moderator privileges and roles is all that matters. I could care less if they get banned or not. All that matters is that they have their moderator position removed. Step 2. Cut off your affiliation with the Warframe Discord. Epic Games is already wandering into the realm of legal problems, and there's no reason for DE to follow. It's obvious that Tobias is not going to stop what he's doing, given that he's been at it for years now. But the very minimum that can be done is for DE to cut all ties and affiliation with the Warframe Discord. This type of activity from a senior guide of the Lotus is unacceptable. According to you, guides are supposed to be role models. If this is your definition of a role model, I'm incredibly disappointed. Step 3. Get rid of the guides of the Lotus program. The majority of the players have absolutely no clue what guides even do or where to find them. Nothing of value would be lost by getting rid of the program entirely. Accept the feelings of those who joined only for the feeling of being part of an exclusive club. Plus, it's already been beaten to death why nobody can take guides seriously. So you aren't really losing anything by disbanding the program entirely. If having a volunteer-based program is really important to you, then all you have to do is purge every single guide you have. Rebrand the Guides of the Lotus program to Guides of the Lotus 2.0 or something else, and start fresh. Starting fresh is important, because if you bring back everyone who was part of the old program, you're basically bringing back the same old problems. That's all that needs to be said. I love this game, I really do. It's just that seeing things be managed this way is disheartening. Given that all you've done so far with every update on the chat moderators is just acknowledge there's an issue or say you're changing things, despite the fact that you haven't punished or even mentioned Server, Missan or Telluric. So far, you've just given us as the players the impression that you don't even want to mention the elephant in the room. And if you absolutely, seriously, 100% want to show that you care about what the players think and say, you're going to have to at some point. Actions speak louder than words, after all. Thank you for watching.
Once again, at this point in the video, I highly suggest you actually watch the Corruption of Digital Extremes video before continuing, so you have all the information and comments that he provides in regards to every situation and topic that he brought to attention and made his points around. Because I simply converted it from a 30-minute video to 3 minutes, and of course a lot of information is going to get lost in that conversion. With the breakdown of the video out of the way, let us continue into the DE statements. On the 26th of February, 4 Digital Extremes employees, those being Steve Sinclair, DE Steve, Rebecca Ford, DE Rebecca, Megan Everett, DE Megan, and Pablo Alonso, DE Pablo, replied to the posting of the video on Twitter with the following thread. Steve at 3:54 AM said, "Your critique has always been welcome, but I cannot abide personal attacks against my team. Shameful. I hope you fix this." Rebecca continued at 3:55, saying, "Too true. Hate to see it, but it comes with the territory. DE can do better, is and always will be welcome, but this is another league entirely." Megan continued at 3:55, very disappointed in the choices made in this video, both personally and professionally. The intention baffles me, and a lot of respect has been lost today from this appalling regurgitation. And the final post was from Pablo at 4:26 AM. Criticism is welcome, even encouraged. It is why we make ourselves public, so you can tell us what you think needs to be improved on, and we can keep making Warframe the best game we can. Personal attacks are not criticism, they are just attacks. No interest in that shit. The response to those tweets were met with criticism, with a number of users asking where the personal attacks were, and that the staff addressed the topics that had been presented in Rahetalius' video. Users also shared their thoughts that Rahetalius' video had some questionable comments that did not need to be present to showcase the evidence, and some just believed that the tone was not necessary. Other users also chimed in, sharing their disappointment towards DE, but some agreed with DE's stance and response. It is at this point I will present the comments made by users that garnered a response from Digital Extremes employees into this timeline, all of which have varying different opinions. Our first thread had been started when a user replied the following to Megan's tweet. "The chat moderation is horrendous garbage though. As much as I love the game and the DE team, enough to make me spend upwards of €200, I absolutely cannot stand the in-game chat. The moderation is akin to 2004. forum moderators who believe the world is theirs. If there are words that self-righteous moderators find offensive to them and them alone, they are banned. And so are you, even if you aren't aware of the banned word and use it. Most popular, trap and neger in the same uttered sentence. It is generally a bad idea to give biased, overly time-free people power. They will abuse it. Currently watching the rest of the video will reply if I agree with anything else. This thread concluded on the 26th at 4:21 AM when Rebecca said the following: "Except I have audited our new moderation since it began in December, and worked on the onboarding of professional moderators and changes listed here." It is at this point Rebecca does link to the chat moderation changes and additions report forum thread that had been posted on the 31st of January 2019. This forum post does follow that of the post under the title Chat Moderation Changes and Additions that had been made on the 19th of December 2018 after the late 2018 Fortuna debacle. As for the report thread, it states, "Back in December, we started implementing several new processes to make our chat moderation program more robust. We have gone through several stages of this process, and we are finally at a point where we have been able to monitor these changes and see the effect. On the whole, we have been pleased with the changes made and want to give you a brief rundown on what is different and the kind of activity we see. On the 5th of December, we changed kick and ban notices to system messages, making them more visible. We improved our logging of moderation actions, and we added internal staff members to overlook chat moderation and provide resources to maintain the program. On the 18th of December, we restructured our volunteer webpage, linking to the volunteer webpage, with information about chat moderation and a chat moderator code of conduct, along with a way of reporting issues with chat moderation should you feel it is in error. We hired a professional team of external chat moderators and trained them to adhere to the code of conduct, helping maintain a constant presence. And we have been watching and reviewing chat moderator actions in conjunction with support and giving guidance, training, and warnings when appropriate. This part of the process is ongoing and will continue with the program. As of today, that being the 31st of January 2019, we have reviewed the last month to see how moderation has changed, as well as taking a much closer look at some of the most common bans, the actions of the moderation team as of the program change, and the results of actions occurring. While we abide by policy and will not release names of offenders or players, we wanted to give you a snapshot of how moderation tasks are broken up between the various systems. Right now, moderation has looked like this: all actions on all platforms combined. 82% moderation action came from Kickbot, and 17% from volunteers and hired staff. After review, we are seeing a lot of the same actionable reasons. While it is against policy to give you named examples, much of our manual kicks and bans actioned on by volunteers and staff are the result of users trying to circumvent Kickbot by using reordered or changed characters in effort to evade the filter, and the rest of the kicks and bans are for inappropriate topics, threats to users, volunteers or staff, or continued use of inappropriate channels to advertise, trade, or recruit. Our professional team is able to provide weekly snapshots into bigger picture moderation needs. Rebecca then provided a screenshot of the moderation report. Under problematic users, their reasoning: user, repeat offender, kickbot baiting. User, repeat offender, inappropriate sexual discussion. User, chat spamming and ignoring warnings given. User, said I love little girls in main chat. User, no, I beat my wife. User, chat spamming and kickbot baiting. User, there is only one gender, male, females are property. User, feminists need capital punishment for living. User, kickbot baiting. The problematic users are then followed by notable trends: general game discussion, mods, build advice, farming and more, barrow availability and general discussion, and baiting other players to violate guidelines and get kicked. The following paragraph ends the chat moderation changes and additions report thread, and it reads: in summary, the changes we have added to the system have had an effect that we find to be positive and functional. When mistakes are made, usually from simple human error, they are corrected and reverted. In all, the changes to the program have put it in a place that we are happy with, and we are seeing a much more structured response to the various issues that can arise with in-game chat. And of course, based on that screenshot, you can see why we need to moderate chat in the first place and what type of stuff we're focusing on. Rebecca then continues and ends her tweet with the following. This is why we have moderation, to deal with the attached report provided by our pro team. Next in the timeline, another user responded to Megan's tweet. I would definitely say that this video might be a bit of regurgitation on Mr. Boobenhead's side, but he did still raise a lot of new points. I did not see it as an attack, but very harsh criticism. Rebecca responded with the following, which sparked off into 3 threads. Warframe is born out of harsh criticism. This is like harsh criticism's second cousin that punches people and says it'll help them because they'll develop scar tissue. The first thread was through the original user, who said, I know, I just hope that the third-party chat moderator things will be taken initiative because general players like me have no idea when. Rebecca then quoted the aforementioned chat moderation and changes report tweet with the following caption on the 26th at 4:37 AM. It's almost like this video is intentionally misleading them, since I get weekly reports on all moderator actions and posted the first report here with a review, linking back to the chat moderation and changes report tweet. The second thread concluded at 10:53 AM. User 1. Agreed we had the right intentions, but he delivered them in a way that accuses you guys horribly and sets the players against you, and that wasn't necessary to get you guys to watch it. Rebecca replied, yes, I believe he had good intentions. Megan, agreed. The third thread once again continues off of the hard criticism comments, and it ended later that day at 11:20 AM. User 1. I agree it could have been less aggressive, but I know he is and some others have been addressing this issue for a long time. This is clearly a product of frustration which, while it looks ugly, is essentially constructive if you choose to act upon it. Rebecca replied by quoting the aforementioned chat moderation changes and additions report forum post thread, commenting, which we have been since December. Another user replies, if you think this means there is no issue, then the video was right. Rebecca responded, no, these ongoing and documented changes are a result of issues. Rome wasn't built in a day. Hiring, refactoring, and changing moderation is an ongoing effort. User 2. I hope all of this can be resolved. I believe that everyone involved can put aside their differences and own up to their mistakes. Rebecca responded, for sure. User 3. We all have to admit that Warframe, despite its issues, goes miles above and beyond all other development teams. Even the fact that this dialogue is happening is brilliant. I love that DE isn't a faceless corporation. Thanks. Rebecca responded, we try our best. The next reply was to Rebecca's, but it comes with a territory tweet, and the user responded, it is hard to see this as personal attacks when there is screenshot evidence for practically everything discussed in the video. The old guard mods should be purged and replaced. He wants the community to be better, not the often toxic wasteland that we have all seen it be. To which Rebecca responded, there is no denying failures exist in the 4-year duration of all our player-driven programs, and we have a public paper trail of our efforts to rectify issues among these programs, especially in the past few months. Witch hunting our DE team is not constructive. At this point in the timeline, it is 6:38 AM, and the original developer response was shared to the Warframe subreddit under the title, Rahetalius uploads a video giving a rundown of the entire chat moderation scandal, in turn gets accused of quote-unquote personal attacks against DE staff on Twitter by Steve, Rebecca, Megan, and Pablo. Whether this is relevant or not, but the post received a point score of 2,502, with 89% being upvotes. The post also has 1,879 comments as of making this video. This Reddit thread had one Digital Extremes reply, and that came through DE Megan at 7:10 AM, which as it stands currently has minus 869 points. While the first section is a copy of Rebecca's tweet, it follows. We can agree that systems need to improve, which we do and are continually making improvements, and disagree with the inflammatory nature of the presentation of said points pertaining to our DE staff. Both sides of this are not perfect, which is why we hope it can be amended. There is a line between brutally honest, which we can take, and malicious intent. This statement received a number of replies from users, for the most part denouncing the first and final sentences. With one post reading, I watched this video in its entirety. I did not see or hear anything that sounded malicious. What I saw was a presentation of assertions regarding DE's handling of moderators supported by evidence. Systems don't need improving. The actions and behavior of people inside digital extremes need improving. Accountability needs improving. Your DE staff were and are in charge of recruiting people to the Guides of the Lotus and chat moderation programs which have been the subject of much controversy over the past few years. You all chose to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear towards these issues, all while befriending and supporting toxic moderators. You all chose to do that. You specifically chose to do that in a previous crime time, and that's what the video presented. There is video evidence of your friendly interactions on prime time with one of those toxic moderators. That isn't malicious, that isn't inflammatory. I'm sorry that the truth hurts, but you all have to take responsibility for your handling of this situation. You cannot expect the community to accept your vain promises of improvement when you won't acknowledge the mishandling of the situation on the part of the community team. The entire community team needs to take responsibility for this moderation situation. Presenting the team's responsibility for this problem is not a personal attack. You are all public figures. You have chosen to be, through presenting yourselves on primetime, dev streams, and on social media. You have to be willing to take responsibility and hold yourselves accountable for the behavior you permit through your product. It is good to see you acknowledge a lack of perfection on both sides, but as long as you downplay your roles in fostering toxicity and allowing it to fester on the part of the mod team, this issue cannot and will never be amended. While the following reply is not in reply to Megan's response on the Reddit thread, it is shared through the original post. Oh boy, time to catch some flack, but here I go. While it is true that Rahetalius made solid points throughout the video that very much show how deep the problems run, there's issues with the video as well. For one, the video tells us nothing new. There are old problems brought up again, and it seems like rabble-rousing. As far as I know, there has been no recent scandal, and DE has been quietly working away at their system. I do agree that DE should start working on delivering more updates and communicating more openly, but this video tells us nothing new apart from, hey, these people bad. And we already knew that. Second of all, there are ways to make criticism or bring things into attention that don't require you to publicly name-call people. Did they do shitty stuff? Yeah, that is a known fact. Publicly naming and shaming, however, according to what I'm told, is considered personal attacks in Canada, and there is a fine line to walk between brutal honesty and being downright antagonistic. You can make claims and then reach out privately about it all. If DE continuously turned a blind eye to his reports, then I could understand this response. In the end, while I agree with the core message of Warframe himself, I strongly disagree with the delivery of said message. And to me, it feels like the video didn't really say anything new that needed to be said and came off as inflammatory. Now there are of course many replies to each of these posts, all of which I can't share here, but if you do wish to read them yourself, all of the links to the shown material are in the description down below. Now back to our timeline of tweets. In response to Pablo's tweet, a user said the following: "There is a difference between personal attacks, ad hominems, and calling out misconduct or predispositions of a person. Personal attacks are about irrelevant things such as looks. Most of Rahetalius' video was about factualities that would impair the functioning of a moderator. The fact that you have decided upon quote-unquote training replies and hiding behind calling these accusations personal attacks is worrisome and indicates a level of apathy. You can wait for these issues to blow over, or you can finally and publicly address them once and for all." Rebecca responded, "There is no apathy there. I apologize if that seemed the case." She then links back to the chat moderation changes and additions report tweet and forum thread. Again, we have made and continue to make moderation changes. Another user responded, "If DE and its devs choose to act against him now, instead of the mods that did wrong so many times, it will simply prove his point, and more respect towards DE will be lost." Rebecca replied, "We can agree that systems need to improve, which we do, and are making improvements, and disagree with the inflammatory nature of the presentation of said points pertaining to our DE staff." An extra user commented, "The whole tone of the video is honestly just unhelpful. Pretty sure everyone, including y'all at DE, know there are issues, but the vid's weirdly politicized take isn't really constructive at all. Y'all could do better at communicating mod stuff though, in my opinion. Rebecca ended this thread at 6:23 AM with the following reply. For sure, I agree with this take. At this point in the video, we are at a long thread that stems from Megan's initial reply to the video and has a number of users conversing about the situation. I will be reading all of the conversation because Megan replied at the very end of it. User 1. Good job, Rahetalius. This was a great video. Sorry that DE can't take the heat. The chat moderation is still bad. The edge may have been more than necessary, but this is your channel and you presented evidence for your claims. Excellent job. User 2 responded. Guy personally attacks people. Good job, creator. User 3. It's not hard to see issues within DE. They get set on an ambitious idea, start to work on said idea gets delayed. If a problem isn't a widespread issue, they don't bother fixing it. Yell loud enough and eventually someone will come see what the commotion is all about soon. TM. User 2 responded. They're an indie developer who were told by countless publishers that they would fail. Of course they have issues, but being a condescending ass about it gets you nowhere. User 1. So ignore the points and factual content because the delivery was edgy and dickish? That's some unintelligent thought right there. You are too blind apparently to see that there's a problem that's been around for years that still needs fixing. Their apathy and tolerance of broken community guidelines via their chat mods hurts the community and the enjoyment of players at the hands of a system abused by Tumblr losers with mental issues and power trips. Yes, Rahetalius did an excellent job. That's an objective fact. User 2. I realize that chat moderation needs work, but as I said, if you can't be constructive about it, you'll get nowhere. User 1. Maybe so, but they look bad. Still, because they'll continue to ignore this issue and the victims of their chat mods based on, quote, it wasn't nice criticism. The defense doesn't justify a lack of action or response to these claims. We need an update on a dev stream for our sakes. User 2. Absolutely. It does seem like they have a track record of ignoring and leaving things that they have a tough time working on to die, such as the Conclave. Kind of get that feeling when it comes to chat. User 3. They do that with some Warframes too. They release a frame, tweak it when it first comes out, and forget about it until augments arrive. User 2. Oh yeah, I remember hearing the beating Oberon was getting to Kit. They just somehow kept making it worse. User 3. Oberon was a nightmare lol, and the rework was a joke when it first launched. His 1 couldn't even kill a level 1 corrupted heavy gunner with 300 power strength. User 2. Yeah, obviously DE isn't perfect, but calling the company corrupt and insulting the team is just childish. Which is what that video does. Megan at this point replied, For 6 years we have taken, reviewed, and applied criticism across many fronts. Even touchy subjects such as chat moderation can be discussed, but there is always a line at which it turns from constructive to spiteful with intent to inflame. Concerns raised here have value which give guidance to our ongoing efforts. Never perfect, never done improving. User 4 replied, It seems that the quote-unquote line you speak of as far as a large percentage of the player base is concerned is years of us bringing it to your attention followed by years of no visible action taken on your part to correct it. Is that the line you are speaking of? Megan replied, quote, years of no visible action, end quote, is an incorrect statement. Action has and will continue to be taken. It is at this point in the tweet, she quote tweets Rebecca's chat moderation changes and additions report thread tweet. Another user chimes in at 7:27 AM. Except you never took action against Telluric and his gang of psychopaths when you were presented with plenty of evidence. Me and my friends got the response that since the offending party didn't do anything in game, nothing could be done. What a double standard. Another thread popped up in response to Megan's initial response that ended at 8:02 after Rebecca's reply. I'm disappointed in you guys that you chose to ignore the truth about how horrible chat mods are and deflect everything said in the video. Rebecca then replied, We can internalize and improve bad situations, which we have and are, and still express disappointment in inflammatory content concerning our DE team specifically. We then had fellow Warframe partner Reaper Hunter tweet in reply to Rahetalius' video. The developer's response to this are what's really sad. Yes, the video was aggressive, but sometimes to get the nail in the wood, you hit it really hard. The only quote-unquote shame to be had is that it came to this in the first place. May been working on this year probably since December, but it's almost March. His video definitely hurt a couple of egos, but the entire reason for it seems to have flown over DE's heads completely, minus Reb, who at least addressed, kind of, the actual topic of the video, and Rebecca responded. I've also made a forum post outlining what we prioritize weekly based on reporting of our paid mods, linking to a new forum thread reply that reads, I'll be dropping in and posting some weekly reports I get from our professional mod team so everyone knows what we are tracking and why in terms of moderation and notable trends. It should be very clear from these reports the entirety of why we bother moderating at all, and what our priorities are since making systemic changes. Luckily for a game as large as ours, our problematic user list is quite short, but it also allows a consolidated area to keep our in-game region chat focused on our Space Ninja game. Neja is a trap is pure spam. Kickbot kicks spam as per the no spamming rule. The statement had an image attached similar to the chat moderation changes and additions report post. It states problematic users. Repeat offender, overly sexual discussion, chat ban 1 week. Repeat offender, anti-feminist discussion, dev bashing. Repeat offender, comparing one of DE's future updates as copying Fortnite. Twice asked about the Jews. Gender discussion and saying mods are politically biased, chat spamming, and chat spamming. Started Neja is a trap discussion, goodbye lady boy. N-word baiting, T-word baiting, N-word baiting, T-word baiting, N-word baiting, T-word baiting, and N-word baiting, T-word baiting. Chat spamming. As for notable trends, barrow availability and discussion, fashion frame discussion, Warframes which is the best strategy, general discussion, moderators being biased, oceanic, N-word baiting, NA and oceanic, Neja is a trap discussion, and sexual discussion. Now back to the tweet to continue. We are not ignoring it. This is what directs chat moderation plain and simple. Objective professional reports, our ability to tailor Kickbot. The Reaper Hunter replied, I can only hope your reports at some lead to an actual rework change in how things are. The fact players need to stop and think, will this get me timed out for every plausible trigger word for Kickbot kills incentive to participate in region chat, i.e. saying Neja and Siphon Trap? Rebecca replied, you don't have to hope. We have data and better structure now. Having said that, we aren't going to loosen spam rules and intentional sidestepping of our most spammed phrases. And Reaper Hunter ended the thread at 9:17 AM. Naturally, spam and loopholes should be heavily regulated. What folks are trying to emphasize is the slowly crumbling ability to have a casual conversation without getting suspended. I'll give props, the crumbling has stopped, but the pieces are still missing. Another Warframe partner, SUBREDDIT, released a comment in regards to the whole situation on Twitter that eventually received a reply from Rebecca. His post said, seeing how DE staff responded to Rahetalius' video is currently the biggest yikes moment of 2019. The mean train man, name drop staff members, let's ignore all points. Draw an arbitrary line in the sand where criticism is invalid and dogpile everyone on him. This is the first time in 5 years where I can say I'm truly disappointed in DE. Not in their game, but their practices. Can't wait for the Reddit and forum post followed by radio silence. Again, for the third time. This post then received a quote tweet to Rebecca's response to the Reaper Hunter, as well as an apology where Rebecca said, I'm sorry we disappointed you, SUBREDDIT. To which SUBREDDIT replied, thank you for the heads up. While it's good to see you are making strides, the fact that it's only brought up when someone has to prod the sleeping wolf has me worried. It should not have to get to this point to get some sort of feedback. We are now at the final community response made about this whole ordeal, and that was made at 1:46 AM on the 27th of February, under the title Understanding the Chat Moderation Scandal and the Community's Hunt for Blood. This Reddit thread is the last to be made that received a response from DE staff in regards to the whole situation. It received a point score of 1022, with 86% being upvotes. The post itself recaps the recent situation as to the creator's knowledge, and it also asks the question on why the community is out for blood, rather than be happy with the changes made so far. The post itself was met with many responses, that being 778 comments as of recording this video, however only one had seen a response by DE staff, with that post reading, I think part of the reason that people are frustrated is that these mods broke the rules and DE is defending them, full stop. While the people that say that things are running more smoothly are not incorrect, That doesn't change the fact that they had some pretty awful people serving as mods. Some of those mods are still there, and the ones that aren't weren't acknowledged to have done anything wrong. Normally, when people fuck up that badly, you take away their privileges as an individual in power, but instead, DE has doubled down on keeping mods in their system that have blatantly broken rules. It feels really icky to see favoritism defend people who really don't deserve it. If you are a mod, you should have a clean record. There are thousands of wonderful people in this community that would do an amazing job of moderating. Why should people proven to be bad choices get second and third chances? What's more, once you look at the issue from this perspective, it makes some of the other points from the video make sense. The questions of inconsistent partnerships with YouTubers falls into this weird favoritism conversation. From my honest 2 cents, I think it's mostly just that people don't like to see DE standing up for bullies rather than admit they made a mistake. As for the aforementioned DE response, it was from Rebecca and Red. We do owe an apology for our response, because it really appears to lack empathy in hindsight. No empathy equals DE fails a group of players' concerns. With failure comes fear. And fears escalate. Because of points in the dialogue being raised, when a random comment claims something, is it true? Is Danielle banning whoever she feels like because a comment on the internet said so? No way. Our team's mental health is important to us, so we reject the notion that critiques need to be hit pieces. Attack the problem, don't name and shame. Outsourced professionals now lead the way. It is refreshing and we should have done it sooner. Kickbot is and always has been ours and ours alone. Getting rewired to address anything from topical Ligma spam to Nezha is a trap. A lack of public condemnation does not mean it's being ignored. We choose to not publicly execute volunteers. Now, similar to the previous response by DE Megan, this post received a number of comments in reply. In this case, the overall consensus was that you don't need to publicly execute volunteers. We just want them gone. With the first comment stating, as should be expected of any company, they should have quietly and without fanfare have had their privileges revoked long ago. This situation came about because of their egregious breaking of the rules with seemingly no repercussions. Another, you don't have to publicly execute them to give them proper punishment. Once again, I can't speak for the whole community, but it's not what I want at least. That is not the problem. Ignoring these people's behavior is the problem. I don't see people en masse give you guys bad time over Telluric or Shadow quote-unquote quitting, because people just want them out of power, not to lynch them. That's when people get upset with DE. The problem is behavior of people in power, mods, and favoritism to them, because they are quote-unquote friends. Instead of fixing that problem, you guys react as if we want to lynch innocent people and don't want the actual problem to be fixed. Me personally, I do not want problematic mods to be scapegoated. Do it quiet and behind the closed doors. People are upset with DE because you ignore mods' behavior for years, not because you are not going to punish them publicly. A large post from a user said the following: I agree with much of what you said, except that with failure comes fear. Silence brings fear. Everyone knows that the most potent fear is fear of the unknown, and with your lack of response we've come to fear the worst. We love your game, and we love how much you love your game. But for most of the mod scandals, all we hear was, we're looking into it, which is a valid response. But it was all we got. Someone would share mod abuse, we're looking into it. A few weeks, months later, same offenders do the same thing, we're looking into it. After a while, we began to see those words as hollow, as worthless platitudes to tide us over while nothing got done. We started to feel ignored, like our concerns didn't matter. Then, when interpersonal links broke about the offending mods and DE Danielle, a more insidious thought started cropping up that we were actively being suppressed. We started feeling victimized, and all through this, nothing from DE, radio silence. Then the silence broke with something new. DE Bear takes the stage, promising to change things for the better. Then we hear that he's friends with Danielle and the offending mods, and that fear crops up again, that this is one big nepotistic conspiracy. Bear tried to dispel these fears by promising to stay objective, but then goes as silent as the rest of you, and the fear comes back full force. I mean, for God's sakes, you posted chat moderation update part 1, and we never got a follow-up after that. People react differently when afraid. Some left, some stayed cautiously optimistic, some became morbidly resigned, and some became angry. Anger is infectious, especially if people feel maligned and it becomes a self-righteous fury That wave of anger swept through the subreddit, and people do stupid things when scared, and every post about mods became toxic minefields. Even now, some people still remain so. The trust we had was damaged, and trust, when lost, is difficult to regain. I'm not telling you to tell us everything, all the behind-scenes play-by-play. I'm asking that you say something, anything, to assuage our fears when they rear up about what you're doing about it, instead of clamming up. You might be doing things about it, but if we get no real response, we must assume that nothing is being done. We're getting real updates now, and we can see changes, and it's great. It's terrific. But will it last? Will we still have this level of transparency if there is another issue as big as this? I truly hope so. There were, of course, other users stating, "Brilliant post, don't let any player convince you to do anything differently from that," and another user commenting, "True, your response was human but not appropriate. But still, the problem being addressed here is being worked on, and I don't understand why the narrative is DE did nothing, and the subtext screams DE is still doing nothing, when it's well documented that they are in fact working on it very professionally." He then continues by quoting the "a lack of public condemnation does not mean being ignored" comment, stating, "And that's exactly the right thing. But what I am seeing going on here is a witch hunt." Another user commenting, "Thank you for not succumbing to the witch hunt, and I'm sorry that your game seems to have become the latest political background in gaming, Reddit, YouTube outrage sphere. Hopefully it passes eventually, and it isn't distracting you folks from the work you really want to be doing." We are now at the final Twitter reply from DE staff, which was made in response to Better Name Pending's post that reads, "Armed with this divine introspection, I concluded DE had a really bad day as they literally never act this way. Give both sides time to calm down and settle it in private. Definitely don't bomb their upcoming podcast with comments about this. It would be an unrelated, unhelpful dick move." To which Rebecca replied, "We do owe an apology for our response, because it really appears to lack empathy in hindsight. No empathy equals DE fails a group of players' concerns. With failure comes fear." Better Name Pending replied, "If I can be honest, try to reach an understanding with Rahetalius rather than Control-C, Control-V Jedi wisdoms to me from your Reddit post. I might be pretty vocal on Twitter, but I am not too involved in this. Not yet, and hope not to be. Unless this somehow spirals out of control." Rebecca replied, "Yup, just cross-posting in appropriate areas." Better Name Pending, "Yeah, noticed. Just not entirely sure to what end, or if it makes a whole lot of sense without the second paragraph. If I hadn't read the whole thing, or read it, I would have no idea what you're trying to say. The last sentence really sort of hangs in the air without much meaning." And the final reply was at 12:35 PM on the 27th of February, for sure, noted. And that does end the replies from DE to the community overall. As we near to the end of the whole ordeal, on the 27th of February at 2:23 PM, Rahetalius released a 10-minute follow-up video titled Warframe in response to Digital Extremes. Once again, I do urge you to watch that full video so that you can form your own opinions, gain all the information that he provides before continuing. In the video, Rahetalius starts by stating he is quite happy that the video has been taken noted of by Digital Extremes, while stating further that their collective response leaves a lot to be desired. He also reveals while commenting that an email had been sent to him by DE in wake of the original video's posting. That reads, "Hi Rahetalius. We usually prepare our thoughts, but we have spent the past 40 minutes talking about your video and it has not had the effect we think you intended. We have never had a partner video circulate internally under such disbelief that it came from a partner who was personally attacking our team. Whatever truth this video could have presented was eroded by the sheer witch hunt mentality presented within. There is no denying failures exist in the 4-year duration of all our player-driven programs, and we have a public paper trail of our efforts to rectify issues among these programs, especially in the past few months. Attacking the staff members who work tirelessly on them is not the route to improvement. Please let us know how you envision our future professional relationship in regards to partnership following this video. Regards, the Warframe team." As we return to the video, he continues by expressing his disappointment to the overall Digital Extremes response, by highlighting that they have failed to address any of the topics discussed within the original video, and instead chose to publicly shame him by stating that it was an attack on DE staff, highlighting furthermore that their response is actually an ad hominem, and in them doing so, also appears as if they only watched the parts of the video that mention DE Daniel by name, and the silence on the topics of the video make it seem as if they don't want to have a serious discussion about the chat moderators, and that the silence doesn't just apply to the chat moderators, highlighting the case with Ashitogi Tenno's Warframe partnership. He also further comments that DE's lack of address of the moderators prior to DevStream 120 by highlighting the history of lack of acknowledgement and enforcement with Psycho-Cinematics video, and numerous posts reaching back years that comment on and highlight the issues with the chat moderators. He then acknowledges that he could have structured his video to be less aggressive, but clarifies that it was not done to attack DE as they had claimed, and furthermore expands by commenting DE shouldn't be surprised with its structure, as it's the only way to get a comment on topics that have gone without, such as the chat moderation. Rahetalius then provides a number of situations where DE has remained silent in regard to player feedback, only to implement the opposite of what the community wanted without valid reason. Universal Vacuum is one of the examples, where they provided nerf versions in the vacuum within to the other Sentinels that eventually got changed after player outcry, Beast Vacuum mod, which was released with Fortuna. There was then the example of the Design Council Avara Augment, where the majority vote was not chosen to be the augment in-game, and then the Prime Vault accessory packs that only were added around the time Jim Sterling made a video on the predatory nature of the combined packs without a secondary option. He does use the final example of the Prime accessory packs as to question, do we really need a large public figure to start playing the game and then share their feedback to get something the community has been asking for a while changed? He then reiterates in the later half of the video, stating that if DE had not swept these issues under the rug for so long and resolved them when they appeared, the backlash and support would not have existed. Using fellow Warframe partners and creators' responses to the original video and that of the significant Reddit status as examples to disprove the notion that the video was a personal attack. He also comments that DE can understand, yet has failed to apologize to Fostinator, who was the Guides of the Lotus member who was kicked from the program, and the actions made by the abusive chat moderators. He then concludes the response video stating that he and the community are happy to offer genuine feedback on how to improve these systems, that being the chat moderation and Guides of the Lotus, if DE is willing to make the changes. And he then comments that he is willing to do so, as evidence to his previous suggestions to the Guides of the Lotus that he had sent in at DE's request in regards to his Guides of the Lotus video. And as to how he ends the video, I will play that right now.
Just like I said in my previous video, if you absolutely, seriously, 100% want to show that you care about what the players think and say, you're going to have to at some point address and finally do something about your chat moderators and your guides. Because again, actions speak louder than words. I truly hope you're just as willing to finally discuss this as I am. Nothing will get done or improved if things keep going like this. I eagerly await your response. Yours sincerely, Rahetalius. Thank you for watching.
And with the end of his video, we also got a response from DE that came through the form of an email, but was later shared in the comments section of his response video. Rahetalius did share this email on Twitter with a comment, "One step at a time." The question remains, will we actually see change this time around? As for the email, it read, "We had an emotional response on Twitter to specific members of our team being involved, which in hindsight was not appropriate for the case. It is important for communities to put their trust, not just time, in a team that can admit when they fucked up handling of a situation. But admitting they fucked up is empty on its own. We understand that sometimes, maybe often, it may seem like we're ignoring important topics, but the reality is that a lot of deliberation happens behind the scenes with many factors and opinions playing a role. One of the most important things to do is externally attribute decision-making, aka causality, because X did a thing, Y happened. It's never quite that simple, and so we don't claim causality. The premise that outrage gets noticed has a partial truth for how we operate. For a team that has done hundreds of hotfixes, a small percentage includes things that escalate, and we don't want to be a company that ignores things that escalate. Is it imperfect that things do escalate? Absolutely. At the end of the day, we are in a privileged position to have people care about Warframe. The last thing we want to do is abuse this privilege. Poignant topics of discussion really are born out of two truths. Chat needs moderation and new players need guidance. Despite these realities, the way we have approached these truths have led us to stray from our frankly simple objective. Our takeaway is that where we are now is not where we or you want us to be. Our action will speak louder than words as 2019 goes on. Sincerely Anaros, but with head not in sandstorm. Now Ashitogi Tano did reply with, "So, actions this year will speak louder than the past 2 or even 3 years? I guess we will see, but my hopes are low. And not even a personal apology, or whatever, after personally attacking. Still kinda speechless. Hashtag damage control." Rahetalius responded, "Given the backlash DE has received, they know that if they try to sweep this under the rug again, the next community response will be worse without a doubt. I have my reservations too. Hopefully this can be addressed a bit more in the upcoming dev stream," which it was not. Another user also said the following, "About the issues, we can only wait and see, but that already makes me really happy. That quote-unquote personal attack bullshit was too much. Glad they saw through it." And then asking Rahetalius, "Did you see any sort of punishment like unpartnered or something?" Where he responded, "No, still a partner, no punishments applied to my account, everything is reading normal." And that was the final comment by Rahetalius on this topic. As for DE, a user did comment the following on the Twitter post for Rahetalius' response video. "I truly hope this situation gets the resolution it needs. My feeling for the game is influenced by these events, and so has it for other Warframe fan artists. I'm tired of this and have been quiet about the situation, though I think it's time I press onto a side." DE Megan did reply to this post, stating, "We are hopeful for the same. Sorry." Which at this point does end all the comments by DE staff and Rahetalius about the whole situation that sparked from his original upload. As for my thoughts on the whole situation, I will first share my post that I made on Reddit, that read, "What some people fail to understand is that his original video, while for the majority was about chat moderation, highlighted the constant loop we have been in for years in regards to DE's decision making. The second video clears up that confusion, and I hope both DE and players can comprehend that accountability and clearer explanations need to happen." I continue further in reply to the second video. "This video was a great response to both DE and community responses without hitting too hard like the original. Hopefully DE will comment on the points you brought up in both the original and this follow-up like they should have done in the first place, instead of only labeling the original as a personal attack and a witch hunt. To DE, it really says a lot when the majority of your game's subreddit members and a number of Warframe partners and creators are in support of such a critical video and essentially agree with the points being provided, without seeing it as a personal attack. At this point, it is not just about chat moderation anymore, and those that don't realize it need to do so quick smart. I also shared my thoughts in regards to the original video on Twitter in reply to one of my followers' tweets. Now my follower's tweet said, "I think his video is pretty objective. Regardless, if he did say something out of line, for the sake of the community, ignore the offending parts and focus on the issues presented." This was in reply to the initial DE response. To which I replied, "There is an emotional undertone to the video which I think stems the backlash from DE. It was a great video highlighting what all of us that are educated on the topics knew and want changed. But there are parts that reduce the point's validity by using vulgar and unnecessary comments. All DE needs to do at this point is act on these 3 points, which were points provided by Rahetalius throughout his video. 1. Remove Server and Masan from their chat mod positions. 2. Cut off all association with the Warframe Discord. And 3. Ditch the guides of the Lotus program. I wholeheartedly believe that point 1 and 3 are points that must be executed. I believe the situation around the chat moderation will never disappear as we continue to have 2 offending chat moderators in power, and I do believe we need a complete reset of the chat moderator program to progress and forget about these individuals. Obviously do it in private. You don't need to publicly execute volunteers, as many of the posts said in response to Rebecca's comment on it. We don't care if it's a public execution or a private execution. We just want them gone. As for the third point, that is ditch the guides of the Lotus program. I also agree with this, which I shared as much in response to the Corruption of Digital Extremes video in the comments section, where I stated, on the topic of the Guides of the Lotus, why did they tie exclusive cosmetics to the program when the program itself is nothing special? The community has always been known to assist new players, sometimes too much. So why tie an exclusive program and cosmetics to such a common task within the community? To elaborate, I think the Guides of the Lotus program could be good, but it's been in a perpetual state. There has been no real significant changes made to their identification to new players or other players. They have their armor set and their sigil. Outside of that and their chat messages, there are no more states of identification, and I do believe DE can either improve this system if they want to go that route, or they should just get rid of it. I don't care about myself getting the exclusive cosmetics, I just don't believe there should be a program that rewards players for what the rest of the community is already known to do. It just doesn't make sense to me. And with that, all I really have to say is that DE's initial response was poor. And after the email that Rahetalius highlighted in his response video, where they stated they were discussing the video for 40 minutes, and then we got the response that they actually posted, I'm just baffled as to how that got through the filter. Obviously there's emotion tied to it, which they stated in their end response, but it's all over now. This is the history of the situation, and DE could have done better, and hopefully they do better in the future. And as they said in the post, actions will speak louder than words in 2019. So all we can do at this point is hope. Thank you for watching this episode of Warframe History. If you liked it, make sure to leave a like. If you even got to this point, let me know in the comment section down below. What did you think of this very long episode, because this is the first of its kind? Let me know how you think I can improve upon the series, outside of shortening the comments made by other players that eventually get the response from DE staff. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching. See you guys next time.